Okay, I just got back last night from watching Maxxine.
I'm curious, did you always want to be in that line of work?
I always wanted to be famous.
If you need to read off the sides we gave you, just go ahead, all right?
I know the lines.
She turns to the camera and, through her trauma, addresses the lens directly.
Name 5 celebrities who got their start in horror movies.
Jamie Lee Curtis, John Travolta, Demi Moore, Brooke Shields, and
Maxxine fucking Minx.
I fucking knew you were going to talk about this. I fucking knew it. Because you gushed about X and Pearl so hard. I knew it. I was like, Kevin's going to go. I'm like, one of the things he's going to want to talk about is Maxxine.
Yeah.
I haven't seen it yet.
Friday night, screening room. Just got back with a group of friends last night. We all went to see it.
So before you get into that.
Yeah, I wanted, before we even talk about it, I guess one of our last episodes, we talked about Pearl.
We talked
right?
about X and Pearl like 2
X and
episodes
Pearl.
ago.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
We went through both of them because I had seen
You
X.
had seen...
I had seen X and you had...
you had not seen Pearl.
I hadn't seen Pearl. You had
Okay.
seen Pearl.
Okay.
I have not seen Maxxine with the triple X. So it's triple X-ine, Maxxine. So obviously you're going to gush about it.
Well.
Ooh.
Hold your horses.
I've heard very mixed things about it. It did not get very good reviews. I know a lot of people were feeling like he dropped the ball on the third entry.
Yeah.
And you are agreeing with this.
I would kind of, that's where I'm going with.
It's very unfortunate.
This will not be a gushing, glowing review.
You're going to talk about
I'm not
going to
shit on
cons.
it.
Yeah,
But yeah.
pros and cons. Okay.
So before we get into that, did you want to talk about Pearl or X or anything? Or?
Well, we already covered those, but I was going to say, before we get into that, let's take a lunch break. And
sure.
And we will return and talk about the gritty, 1980s,
1985.
dirty streets of Hollywood.
Yeah.
So stay tuned. We will return. This podcast is sponsored by the fine folks at Fly By Night Movies, Games, and Toys. Fly By Night Movies, Games, and Toys is your one-stop shop for everything cool and collectible. We are located in the heart of downtown Oshawa. That is Oshawa, Ontario, Canada. If you're looking for movies, video games, and toys, check us out. We are worth the drive. And we're back. We just went to Fat Bastard Burrito and got ourselves some tasty treats for lunch.
Sponsors of the podcast.
Potential future sponsors. Let's not jump to any conclusions. But Mark and I are trying to get Dairy Queen right now.
Dairy Queen.
Dude, Dairy Queen rips. Dairy Queen is lit.
Well,
as the kids like to
until
say.
the check comes through, they're okay. They're just.
Until the check comes through.
Until they pay you. Don't give them free press. Don't be like, they're amazing.
I get what you're saying. Yeah. I don't know how I feel.
I'm not really sure how I feel about it.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. Anyways, back to Maxxine.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
You forgot what you were talking about?
So, yeah, last night I went and saw Maxxine in the small theater.
So this
the
is
indie theater.
2024. This is brand new.
Brand new, yeah.
Yep.
So, in a previous episode, we talked about X and Pearl. And you saw X.
Yep.
But you have not watched Pearl.
To reiterate, X is the Texas Chainsaw Massacre homage film. It's meant to be, it's set in the 70s or 60s.
It's very much a 70s homage to those like
grindhouse
horror films.
Pearl is a prequel to X and follows the villain and antagonist of X.
As a young woman.
Yep.
In 1919 or 1920.
Both played by Mia Goth.
Yep.
And now...
But Pearl is also a throwback. It's set in like 1920, but it's shot and filmed like a 1940s...
Like Technicolor.
Technicolor,
musical type.
Like Wizard of Oz type thing. Yeah.
And then now we got Maxxine, which I'm going to assume is shot like an 80s horror film?
Yeah, so this is director Ty West. This is the third film he's completing the trilogy, I guess, with Mia Goth. I think they also like produced and wrote them together as well. She's been in all three. This is the slick mid-80s sequel to X. So whereas Pearl was a prequel, this is now a direct sequel. The same character, Maxxine Minx.
The only one that survives the events of X.
She's the only one who survives the horrific events of the first film. She makes her way to Hollywood, and now she's trying to break through from the porno industry to become a legitimate movie star on the mean streets of Hollywood. So, what did I think of this movie? I think, how do I put this? Sometimes you wish and you hope for something, and then when it finally comes, you're like,
it's not quite you want it to be.
I was so excited for this movie, like when the
kind of like Mortal Kombat Annihilation.
Yeah, it's like,
when I was a kid.
What's the phrase? Be careful what you wish for, I guess, because like when the teasers dropped for this, I was like, oh man,
perfect.
Like, we were coming off of Pearl, and I fucking love Pearl so much. I think that movie's like a borderline modern masterpiece, and like. I was like, oh, he's going to do it again. This is amazing. We get more, and it's going to be like super 80s. Like it's like a love letter to 80s.
How could this go wrong? How could he fuck this up?
But I really think by now, I think I'm just a little done with like 80s parody and homage. Like this movie is like right off the bat.
80s exploitation shit.
80s exploitation. It just slams you right in the face. Like from the jump, we've got like a montage of like neon, and we get the 80s like needle drops.
Soundtrack.
Synth like ding, and then like Ronald Reagan, and then all, part of the movie is talking heads on the TVs being like, there's a killer on the loose. So part of the plot is Maxxine's trying to make her way in Hollywood. She's trying to become a movie star. And then all around her, there's this mysterious Night Stalker killer.
Which is an actual thing that happened.
Yeah, that was a real thing that happened. Yeah. So they're blending reality and fiction because as she's trying to navigate Hollywood, she has this agent that's helping her. She's the opening scene, she is applying excuse me. The opening scene, she's auditioning for the role in The Purifier 2, which is a sequel to this like fake like big horror blockbuster that's becoming a franchise.
Yep.
And she nails the audition, but then as she's gaining fame and gaining traction, people around her are starting to disappear or be murdered potentially by the Night Stalker, but also potentially by this dark force from her past. So it's a mystery thriller 80s slasher.
What do you mean dark force? You mean by her?
By her? What do you mean?
Like, I assumed the implication was she was killing off her competition.
No, she's not killing people.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
No, maybe that I don't know if we want to get into spoilers for this or not. It's very new.
Well,
I mean,
why
it
don't
just
you
came out.
keep going, and then once we hit the spoiler territory, because we can get into spoilers, because I don't really care as much. I'm not attached to these films.
I don't know if you can tell maybe by the tone of my voice, but I'm not like wowed by this movie.
You weren't
I'm not
blown
gushing
away.
about it. I was not blown away. I found it to be sort of just like almost by the numbers ish, like parodying 80s stuff, and it's like we're almost in like a post Stranger Things world now, where we've been so saturated in nostalgic fucking movies and shows and media that's being like, remember the 80s? Remember 1985?
That's why they're getting into the 90s exploitation now. We're starting to see 90s nostalgia films.
And I guess that's just a cultural thing that's like everything comes back
the
around.
The 80s did it with the 50s.
Yeah.
Like, it's a thing.
It's like once you hit that 30-year or more mark, it's like, well, let's bring this back. Let's re-explore and reinvestigate this time period.
It never got better, buddy. After the 80s, that was
that was the peak.
It peaked. Society and civilization, human pop culture, peaked in the 80s.
And this movie is just seeped in 80s. It's just literally, if you think 1985, this movie is just like slamming you in the face with it. Are there like references? Are they just like, hey, you want to go see Karate Kid? At the cinema? Like, is it like shit like that? She walks past what's it? St. Elmo's Fire is like on the billboard. That's 84, 85, and the soundtrack of that is playing, and they're talking about like upcoming stuff. She goes to the movie lot, and part of the movie takes place on the set of
Purifier 2?
No, on the set of Psycho. The Bates Motel.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting.
There's spoilers, I guess, but there's part of like a little chase sequence, and part of the plot happens in the house of the Norman Bates house on the hill.
Well, that's not really 80s exploitation though, because that movie's from the fucking Psycho 1 is what, 56?
That's from the early 60s, yeah. But she's running
61?
through sets. Like she's on the Hollywood lot.
That's just kind of cool.
It is kind of cool. But there's parts of the movie where she's running through the film sets and lots of all these. I think obviously I caught Psycho.
Yeah.
But I believe she runs through, or walks through the town hall or the town square of Back to the Future. I want to say.
Wow.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I know exactly.
Yeah,
with the clock tower. Yeah, I know.
I
the one
believe-
they use in all 3 films.
I
yeah.
think that's part of it. She's wandering through. There's so much of this is like drenched in.
This sounds like the Universal backlot. Is what you're describing?
Yeah,
Like
it
Universal
must
Studios
be. I
backlot.
don't know studios in it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a specific studio. This movie's like I keep saying, drenched in 80s nostalgia, drenched in Hollywood nostalgia. It's very much a sort of meta, like this is what it's like in the Hollywood sphere.
Sure.
This is how you get in. This is how you make it, kind of thing.
Do they have these stereotypical like sleazy producers? Like, well,
Yes.
honey, you're gonna want this role. You're gonna
Well,
have to do a favor for me, like that.
Not
kind of
like that.
shit.
It is modernized in a
Take
sense.
off your clothes now, god damn it! Like that kind of shit.
You joke, but
Is that actually in it?
Part of the opening of the film is she has to audition, and she nails this. Like Mia Goth has this
Yeah.
wonderful, like sort of POV performance
Yeah.
where they're like, "Do you need help with the lines?" She's like, "No, I have the lines memorized." And she just like looks into the camera and auditions,
And just nails it.
and just nails this scene with this haunting, emotional performance. Like her eyes well up with tears, and
Yeah.
she's saying these like dramatic lines, which sound like they're like the climax of the film that like the part is for. And then right as it ends, they're like, "That was great. Can you take off your top so we can see your tits?" Like, we're going to need to see them.
Yeah.
It's like, holy shit. Like, yeah.
Well, it depends on the role, buddy.
The
It depends on
misogyny
role,
of the time and
it,
stuff.
It depends on the role. Like,
It's interesting.
I know
But
it
then they
sounds
counter-
awful to say, but if you're gonna have to do nudity in a movie,
Yeah, it's just,
you will have to show it.
it's-
But the way they're portraying it is that they're just sleazy pieces of shit.
well, it's played matter of fact. It's played like, that's what it was like.
Yeah.
And like, it's dark, but for better and worse, this is the world.
Does
that she-
Mia Goth actually should go nudity in this?
I believe so. I
I
think
don't know.
so.
Did she do nudity in X?
I think so. Yeah, there's a shot
I
from,
don't remember.
they use a shot from X, and I believe there's nudity. Yeah. I can't, I think so. It's not a heavy focus of the film,
No, obviously,
actually.
yeah.
I don't know.
I was curious.
I'm trying not to ramble, but I don't want to spoil too much either.
Well,
like
let's
you're
get into
saying.
spoilers now.
Okay.
All right, spoilers, folks. If you don't want anything spoiled, go watch something else on YouTube. All right, watch just some other fucking video.
All right, so spoilers for Maxxine. So, her friends in Hollywood are other like working women. They're working at this seedy like dive bar / like strip club.
Yep.
And they're all like, "Oh, we can make it if we just get like a rich man, like a rich dentist or doctor, or if we meet people and make connections, maybe we can get ourselves into bigger films or just settle down." Like, they're working girls. They're trying to make it in this rough and tough like world. So she notices, she nails this audition, but her friends are like, "Yeah, there's this big party up in the Hollywood Hills. We got invited. Do you want to come?" And she's like, "No, I got to work. I got to work on this new film project." They're like, "Oh, okay." Sure enough, the next day, her friends wind up dead, covered in like these satanic
Oh,
symbols.
here we go.
So then we've got the Satanic Panic,
Okay.
which was a big moral panic in the 80s of like Satanism.
Right.
So not only is there the Night Stalker luring in the background, there's also the fact that these women are turning up with their bodies mutilated with like satanic symbolism in them and stuff. And so then we were introduced to these two like detective characters from LAPD, and they think that there's some connection. Mia Goth must know something, or Maxxine must know
Sure.
something. It's her friends that are going missing. And she's like, "I don't talk to cops." She doesn't trust the police because she's got something to hide, obviously, her dark
So
past.
that's my question with the result of X. Are they looking for her? Is she a fugitive
Well, that's
at
the thing.
large?
Yeah, so-
or do they leave that ambiguous?
They leave it ambiguous at first, but it's implied that she escaped the events. Nothing was traced to her. She basically moved
Well,
to...
she was a victim, though.
No, she's a
in that.
victim, yeah, but at the same time...
she did run from a crime scene. Yeah.
She ran from a crime scene, and it's not clear if she was involved with it somehow or if she
yeah,
killed
she's not-
anybody.
they need answers.
There's bodies,
Yeah, there's-
and
exactly.
they need answers.
They need
yeah.
answers. Yeah.
So as she starts to make it in Hollywood, she nails this big audition, and the director is a woman.
Okay.
And she's played by another really great actress. I don't know her name, but I believe she might have played Princess Diana in The Crown.
Kristen Stewart?
No, that's in a film. I don't think that's The Crown. She played Princess Diana in a movie.
Kristen Stewart? I don't know who you're talking about.
Anyway, really great actress. And she's like this empowered, like feminist director who's trying to make a name for herself as well. But she's like, here, we'll look it up here.
No, keep talking. I'm going to look up who this lady is.
She wants to make the ultimate magnum opus horror film that's both the pinnacle of the genre, but also progressive and has a artistic message. So she's very driven and focused on this goal, and she thinks that Mia Goth or Maxxine's character is the perfect role for this. So there's all this stuff going on with the production. Meanwhile, these people are turning up dead. Maxxine has a fake out where she walks home from.
Is it this woman, Elizabeth
Debicki?
Debicki?
Yes.
Is that she? Because she looks like she would be like a director.
She's the like domineering, but
oh, she was in the Great Gatsby remake, the one with Tobey Maguire.
She's the kind of scary director that's like, you better show up on time or it's your ass. So Maxxine has all this pressure to perform.
Yeah, she was Princess Diana in The Crown.
She was,
yeah.
Okay. So there's all this pressure on Maxxine where she can't fuck this up. This is her one chance. If she blows it, then she'll never work in this town again, kind of thing. There's a fun fake out in the movie early where she gets followed home at night, and you think, oh shit, it's going to be the Night Stalker. But it just turns out to be some random jackass, and he pulls a knife on her. And then Maxxine pulls a fucking gun on him and is like, you think this is the first time someone's tried to kill me? It's like, holy
good
shit.
callback. Great
callback.
She's tough as nails.
She's tough as nails.
She went through hell.
Yeah.
So now at this point.
So that's fun. So she's like, to counter like kind of what you were asking, you were like, oh, is she going to be a killer? Or like, is she kind of going to be a villain? Almost saying, no. Maxxine is very much portrayed as she's a survivor.
Okay.
She's survived these horrific events, and now she's like tough as nails and like
that's better.
like,
I like that
yeah.
better. Yeah.
And her whole goal, which is a callback to X, is the saying from the videotape that her father made of her, and her whole phrase where she's like, "I will be a star," and she's like, I can't exactly remember it, but she has some saying that she says to herself, like some affirmation where she's like, I will not accept a life that I do not deserve, or something like that. She has this saying that she keeps saying to herself. So that's her character. So then she starts getting the mysterious messages and letters that are connected to her past. So she gets off set and goes.
Somebody's like threatening to blackmail her.
Someone's
basically.
blackmailing.
Yeah.
She walks to her car and she's a note on her car, and it's like a picture of her as a child and like her address, and it's like, I know who you are, kind of thing. Meet me at this hotel at 2:00. So she's like, oh shit, okay, this person must know about the events of X or about my past. She goes and she meets a seedy, drunken, greasy detective played by Kevin Bacon.
Kevin Bacon, yeah. I knew about this, yeah.
And he is dressed, as one of my friends caught when we watched it last night, he's dressed exactly like Jack Nicholson from Chinatown. So it's another film, like Hollywood reference. He's in the same suit, and he's like, yeah, like he's like a weird, greasy Southern detective. Where he's like, listen here, honey. Like, my employer knows about you. And he's like, you've got a dark past. You better do what we say, And she tries to bribe him off. She's like, what do you want? Do you want money? I can get you money. And he's like, oh, it isn't about money. Like, what we have on you is like, you can't buy your way out of this. So it's like nebulous.
What do they want?
I don't really. They want her to. I don't know. I think he wants her to meet up with his employer, but she keeps pushing it off.
And what exactly do they
kind of
have on her though? Just that she was connected to the events of X?
He gives her a videotape, and part of the videotape is like the raw footage from what they were shooting in X.
And
like
it
part
shows
of the
her, obviously.
Shows her in like the porno tape that they were trying to shoot. So I guess there would be evidence from that.
Right, of course, yeah.
Like after all the murders, someone left those cameras and that footage on that like farm or whatever it was. So he has some of that tape. And so she's thinking, well, fuck, I'm just about to make it into Hollywood. If they blackmail
can't let this jeopardize my
this will
career,
ruin my career. Meanwhile, she's like, this is all going on. It's really, they don't immediately, like, they threaten her and blackmail her, but then he just proceeds to continue to just monitor her from, like, the sidelines, and he keeps, like, stalking her.
Sure.
But it's not, like, immediately clear that they're like, this is what we want. So the movie kind of drags a bit, to be honest. Like, we're just kind of, if it sounds like it, that's what it sounds like. We're kind of just following her day to day as she's doing her thing.
This feels like a 2-hour runtime film, is it?
It's like an hour 45 or something like that.
And see, like, that is an eternity in horror movies.
Is
like,
it?
Oh, anything past 90 minutes is like,
yeah.
For horror movies, every minute past 90 is like 5 minutes.
Yeah.
That's honestly what it's like for horror films. So it's like, you better fucking earn that extra runtime.
If what I'm describing sounds like it's dragging a little, it's because it kind of does. It's like, what's filling this screen time is like what I'm describing mixed with like shots of like 80s stuff. Like she's like walks past like this building and there's people doing like karate in the building.
Right.
And it's like, why else are we seeing this other than to show that like, yeah, in the 80s, everyone was into karate.
Thing.
People loved karate.
Right.
And it's like, yeah, why are we seeing?
So there's a lot of member berries bullshit, like that kind of shit.
Yeah, but
like it doesn't feel as natural.
And this
if you're gonna do that, you gotta do it subtle.
Yeah,
like you can't be bonking you on the head with it.
Like, so she walks past a marquee, and it's like St. Elmo's Fire is premiering. It's like this at this point, I'm trying to give the movie, like, I'm trying to engage
leniency,
with it, but I'm disengaging, and I'm starting to watch the film in real time where I'm like, okay, is this like a meta thing? How am I supposed to be perceiving this? Right. This is a 2024 film, but we're in the 80s, but we're parodying the 80s, but are we am I supposed to take it seriously?
Yeah.
Because then all of the horror stuff is shot exactly beat for beat and cinematography wise, like Brian De Palma.
Okay.
So you've got this mysterious killer is following her, but we only ever see his like black leather gloves as they twist around knives and around like steering wheels as he's like following her. And it's literally shot like a Body Double or Dress to Kill. If you've seen those.
Yep.
Like, and so then I'm thinking, okay, there's got to be some crazy twist, like De Palma style, where it's and even De Palma with Dress to Kill is a reference to Psycho.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like Ty West is trying to meta connect himself through the history of film all the way back to Psycho by going, do you remember Psycho? Do you remember Dress to Kill? Well, now it's Maxxine. This is 2024.
Right.
So it's trying to create this log line through all this history of horror films. I would be very curious to see your opinion of this film. I really think you should watch it because it's like,
I will. I probably won't like it,
yeah,
but I'll watch it.
There's a lot going on.
It sounds like it's just going to drag and I'm going to go, ugh.
I don't even know if I caught
pacing is so important to me.
I don't know if I caught half the references is what I'm trying to say. Like there's so much referential stuff happening where I'm like, I know that's reference to Chinatown. That's, Psycho. I know that's a reference to De Palma, but there's so much of that going on. There's this other meta. I know I keep saying meta, but like there's this other character that's like a film buff that's friends with Maxxine, and he works at a videotape store. And he's friends with Maxxine because he's like a black gay dude. And Maxxine, I think, makes a comment where they're like, well, I'm the only guy who wouldn't try to fuck you, kind of thing. It's like, okay, I guess I can see where they're friends, but I don't need to be that on the nose. It's like, I don't know.
Sorry, I was going to interject and say, so what, like, why doesn't it work for you? Like, where did it come up short?
Well, I'm getting to this.
Okay.
This is a part of it. So we've got this like gay black film buff guy, and he's reading Fangoria magazines.
Sure.
And he's like, yeah, this film's like this film. And like, this is like this. Oh, you got cast in, because she wins the audition for Purifier 2. He's like, Purifier 2 was going to make like Nightmare 3 look like Nightmare 2. Or he's like referencing all these like film
80s
things,
horror films.
80s horror films. And I'm like, this is now so far into just like referential parodic meta-ness that I'm like, I don't know. Like, I'm just like completely disengaged from the movie. And I'm like, watching
it sounds like it feels like the characters like Mark or myself from Slash Cinema.
Yeah,
it sounds
it's like you're a character.
It
Yeah.
sounds like a modern character being put in a period piece where it's like, yeah, you're a little too aware of everything for you to be in that period.
It's a bit, yeah.
I almost feel bad for these filmmakers though, because it's so hard to shoot something now in the past and not make it and people not see it cynically as like, oh, this is just nostalgia bait.
Yeah,
you know?
and I want
it's hard to do that earnestly now.
I want to
where
engage
it feels,
with it. Yeah,
you know, because like, okay, if you're gonna have a film buff in the '80s, why can't he talk about Ghostbusters and RoboCop and Predator, like Die Hard? Why can't he be talking about those? Why there would be movie nerds from the '80s? Of course there would be.
And I'm not saying there wasn't. I'm sure that characters like this and people
Right.
like this existed, but it's just like. I want to engage with it earnestly, but it's like
But as soon as you have that character, it feels like a modern YouTuber. That's the problem.
Yeah. And but then it's weird because we have all the cliches and genre stuff happening. So naturally all the people around Maxxine get like horribly murdered and killed, including this like black gay character who's basically there. He only exists to like take the videotape from Maxxine, like investigate it. And then he tells her, oh, well, the tape comes from the same location as the first movie. Like, it's a certain type of tape. She's like, I can't tell you who replicated it or who duped it or whatever. But he's like, I know this isn't a Japanese tape. And I know the distributor, it must be from the South. So it's like, he gives her a little bit of a clue, like half of a clue, and then is immediately slashed. He's killed by the killer who ends up being the final killer. So we're playing in genre convention. We're playing in stereotypes. We're playing in the fucking 80s where like there was a final girl, right? There's all these cliches of 80s slasher horror films. But I was just surprised. I was like in 2024, I'm like, what does it say that the only black and gay character gets brutally murdered? Is that a commentary on the nature of the films of that time period? Or is it just like, it was odd? Like, it's weird to still be doing this, but then it's like, well, it's the 80s. That's what it was like. These other women and like gay people, they just get murdered. And there's always a final girl. But it's like, I'm just so tired of like people playing with these things, or it's like, I don't know. It pulled me out of the movie where now I'm just questioning the structural integrity of the film rather than.
It sounds like it was a little too meta and a little too deconstructive of the genre instead of just being a fun film set in the 80s.
Yeah, and it's not, and that's where we get into the next my next sort of. I know I sound like I'm just criticizing and nitpicking and stuff, but it's like, these are all the things I'm thinking about watching it. I'm not engaged with like, oh, is she going to survive? Oh, this is really scary. Ooh,
yeah, because everything keeps pulling you out.
Every little thing just pulled me out and made me just like start thinking about, and that's not what should be happening. What should be happening is I should just be engaged in the narrative.
In the material.
Yeah.
You should be putting yourself in the film.
And I had a hard time with it watching this. Like, I wasn't scared by it. I don't know if it was like, it's aping all these horror movies, but it's not scary. It's not, it has two kind of gross out scenes, but only two, and they're quick. And so it's not like a horror schlock fest where you're like, whoa.
It's not a gore fest.
Yeah, there's one crazy scene, but it's short and quick. Yeah. And then you're left just drudging through her life, and like she's smoking and answering phone calls.
Does it have a satisfying ending?
The ending's super weird. So again, spoilers, but it turns out that the killer is her father from the tape in X.
Sure.
That was filming her as a small child, and he's like a evangelist preacher.
Yeah.
And he was filming his daughter, and he was like, "You got to be the best. If you want to be a star, you got to make it." Like,
right.
And so it turns out her father has tracked her down and was blackmailing her through the Kevin Bacon character. The Kevin Bacon character, by the way, also just dirtles around and does nothing.
Because he has nothing to do.
Maxxine feels threatened by him and so beats him up and punches him in the nose. And his nose gets broken, and that is an excuse to wear the thing on his nose like Jack Nicholson.
Yeah, literally an exact, you're just copying fucking Chinatown.
So she punches him in the nose, and that's an excuse to make him look exactly like Chinatown, like Nicholson's character. So it's like, what?
That's not a clever homage. That's just copying something. At a certain point, like, it's a fine line between homage and inspired by and direct copy and duplicating. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, I'm not saying I have the
you gotta be
answer.
subtle. No, you gotta be subtle, man. You can't just
Yeah.
exactly like, look, he's wearing the thing. He's wearing the thing. It's
Yeah.
like, no, you can't do that.
So he doesn't really do anything. He threatens her some more. Eventually, it culminates in he's chasing her. Like, that's where he chases her through the film lot, and he chases her right up into the psycho house.
Yeah.
And then security shows up, and they're like, "What are you doing here?" He's like, "Oh, I'm sorry. Like, I just got lost." And then it just like is a nothing burger. Like, she escapes, and then so the
So
filming.
the Night Stalker is her father?
No, it actually isn't the Night Stalker.
Oh.
It turns out that it's just he was also murdering people.
But they thought those crimes.
I guess they thought they were connected.
Stalkers?
I may have misinterpreted this.
Oh,
So by
okay.
the end, it's just like whatever.
Okay.
It turns out that her
Kevin
father.
liked this movie a lot.
It turns out that her father has come back from her past, and he's a murderous preacher man who has a cabal of like Christian cult followers, and they've bought a property in the Hollywood Hills and are inviting all the people that know Maxxine up to this house at night, and then like forcing them to confess their sins.
Okay, this sounds like another obscure 80s horror
This
movie.
must be a
called-
reference.
This sounds like Deadly Blessings, which is an obscure 80s horror
Oh, is
film.
it?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Deadly Blessings.
So
It's
this-
blessing or blessings?
This Christian evil cult, and they're like, confess your sins to the devil. And okay, there you go. Yeah.
Deadly Blessing, this movie.
Yeah,
It sounds
so-
like that's what you're describing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they're marking the girls with pentagrams and like chopping their bodies up and stuff when they refuse to reveal that they've been possessed by the devil. And
Dude, my new movie is every movie.
So
Not
eventually,
to shit on T.I. West, but
well, part of the narrative is like Maxine's like she's the tough, gritty last girl. She's like, I got to make it on my own. I got to pull myself up by my bootstraps. You know, no one else is going to do it for me but me. And then these detectives are like, don't you want to help these other girls, Maxxine? They're your friends. Like, all these other people are being murdered. Don't you care about that? And so in a very like stereotypical fashion, she finally has this moment where she's like, you know what? Fuck it. Like, but it's weird because she takes like the director's like, take the weekend off. It's been stressful. I know your friends are dying. Take the weekend off. And on Monday we'll return. We'll start shooting for the film. She's like, okay. So she takes the weekend and concocts this plan with her manager, who's played by Giancarlo Stanton.
okay.
Who he's like this quirky, like sleazebag Hollywood producer or manager.
Sure. Yeah.
And he's like, don't worry, baby, let me handle this. And they concoct this plan to trick Kevin Bacon into chasing her through a nightclub. And then Stanton and one of the thug guys from the strip club beat up Bacon, knock him out, take him to a junkyard, and then put him in a car and then crush the car, like murdering him
Okay.
inside the car. And he's
Right.
like, wait, no, please. And they're like, fuck you, man.
Yeah.
And just like fucking violently crush
of
him in a
course,
car
yeah.
and murder him. And it's like, I mean, cool, I guess. Okay. You've now like murdered this guy who was giving Maxxine trouble.
Right.
But it's like, I don't know what the movie's trying to fucking say, because in the end, she confronts her evil, villainous father who's trying to. There's a huge 80s shootout, which is like almost like a Scarface style shootout where
Okay.
the detectives follow her to the house, and then they have this shootout with this Christian cult. And then she finally confronts her father and like blows his head off with a shotgun. And that's one of
Okay.
the other short, quick,
Yeah.
gross out scenes.
Yeah.
And then it ends with her being successful. And she's like, she survives, she makes it, she
She
becomes
becomes
a star.
like an 80s scream queen.
She becomes an 80s scream queen. And not only that, not only is she in this hit movie that's going to come out, but now she has this huge Hollywood story where she's like expose interviewed by reporters where they're like, what was it like to survive a real like cult that was
Yeah.
trying to,
Yeah,
that was
right.
murdering people?
Yeah,
This
it's
is
a
the story.
yeah,
This is the
right.
story of the century. And it ends with her walking on the red carpet to the premiere at the Chinese theater. And a reporter is like, any words for like all the young girls out there that want to make it in Hollywood? And she reiterates her line where she's like, it's hard work. You gotta do it yourself. You gotta really work hard. And she's like, you know, it's like my daddy always said, I will not live a life that I do not deserve. And then it like ends sort of triumphantly, I suppose. But it's like, It's very 80s. I mean, again, I get that it's like the 80s were such a time period of like, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Only you can make it. You got to do what you can to survive. But it's like, no, she had a sleazebag manager who was willing to help her murder a man and cover up the evidence. And she had like this thug guy that was also willing to like baseball bat the guy in the head and like take the body out and dispose it. And then she had the detectives helping her. And then she had her father and like all this other stuff. It's like, what is the message here?
You sound very conflicted about this movie. Like,
I don't know.
You want to like it a little bit, but you know it's not quite there. It's very janky.
It's janky. Yeah, it's weird.
It just misses the mark.
Yeah.
It's a little too...
I feel
sounds like it's too convoluted.
I'm talking circles, but
you are definitely talking circles.
It's so conflicted.
You sound very conflicted.
Mia Goth is great. Her acting's great.
Yeah.
Stanton is fun. He's chewing up the scenery.
Kevin
Bacon
sure
fucking
is
chews up the scenery. He's hilarious.
Yeah.
But like the end result is just a fucking parody of the 80s that doesn't feel like it really goes anywhere, and just it feels like it's like checking off numbers on a list of like, and here's the parody of this, and here's the reference to this, and this is a homage to this, and this is a homage to this. And then we'll end with a big 80s shootout like this.
Right.
And then we'll have a gory sequence like a Schlockfest movie. That'll be a reference to that. And it's like, I don't know, man. Like, it didn't do much for me. Like, I was not engaged with it like I was with X or Pearl.
Would you recommend it?
I'd still recommend, like, watching it.
But would you... So, you're recommending it to me to watch.
I would say I would be very curious to hear your opinion of it. I think you should watch it.
So then,
like,
my next question is, do you watch this before you watch X or Pearl, or what do you do here?
It's canonically the third and final trilogy movie.
Right.
So it goes
if
X,
you
Pearl,
haven't seen X or
Maxxine.
Pearl, don't watch this yet.
No. Watch X first, then watch Pearl, then watch this.
Okay.
Yeah. Pearl is by far the best one. Pearl is like amazing. This is much more similar to X.
Okay.
Like, and that's another thing that I was kind of disappointed by is like going into this, I wanted more of like Pearl.
The like really good acting,
amazing acting, really sort of like
monologues,
methodical pace, but like drives you through the narrative, and like the characters are really interesting. Like really focusing on like, I don't know. What I wanted was Pearl 2. What I got was like X2, but like not as good.
It's the best X-Men movie, buddy. Moving on. All right.
Anyway, that's Maxxine. Check it out. It is like interesting, and it is kind of fun at parts, but ultimately I was disappointed by it.
It left you soft.
Yeah.
It left you flaccid. Okay.